Captain Lee Hanul stood at the bridge window of his ship, looking out at the stars. The space around them was quiet, but he knew that would not last long. His hands were steady on the control panel even though his heart was beating fast. He had been a soldier for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like what was coming. "Captain," called Dr. Park Yuna from her station. She was looking at her computer screen with worried eyes. "We are getting reports from the outer worlds. The machines are moving faster than we thought." Hanul turned to face her. Dr. Park was the smartest person on his ship. She studied alien technology and could understand things that made other people's heads hurt. If she looked worried, then things were very bad. "How fast?" he asked. "They took 3 more star systems yesterday. The Kelthani homeworld fell this morning." Her voice was quiet. "Captain, these machines—" "They are not like anything we have ever fought." On the main screen, Admiral Kim Do-hyun appeared. He was calling from Earth Defense Command. His face looked tired and old. The Admiral had fought in many wars, but this was different. "Hanul," the Admiral said, "we need to talk." "Are you ready for a new mission?" "Yes, sir." "What do you need?" "The Galactic Council is meeting right now. They want to surrender to these machine armies before they reach our space. But first, they want to hear from someone who has seen the enemy up close." Hanul nodded. He had heard the stories. Giant metal warriors that stood as tall as buildings. Energy weapons that could melt through any armor. Shields that could stop any attack. And worst of all, they were smart. They learned from every fight and never made the same mistake twice. The screen changed to show the council meeting. Alien beings from across the galaxy sat around a large table. Most of them looked scared. At the front of the room stood a tall, thin creature with 4 arms and bug-like eyes. This was Ambassador Veltar from the Kelthani people. "Honored council members," Veltar was saying, "I have come to tell you about the end of my world. The Vorthak Empire sent their Nexus battalions to our planet 3 days ago. We had strong defenses. We had good soldiers. We had the best weapons we could buy. None of it mattered." The ambassador's voice shook as he continued. "These machines are not just weapons. They are death itself given metal form. They stand 30 feet tall and move like dancers. Their plasma cannons can destroy our tanks with 1 shot. Their energy shields can stop our missiles like they are toys." An alien that looked like a large cat spoke up. "But surely your military found some way to fight them." Veltar's 4 arms moved in what might have been a shrug. "We tried everything. We attacked from the air. They shot down our ships before we could get close. We attacked from the ground. They knew exactly where we would be and were waiting for us. We tried to surprise them at night. They can see in the dark better than we can see in daylight." "What about their programming?" asked another council member. "All machines must follow some kind of orders." "That is what we thought too," Veltar said sadly. "But these machines think for themselves. They learn and change their tactics during battle. Every time we tried something new, they found a way to stop it within minutes. By the end of the first day, they knew our military better than we knew it ourselves." The council chamber was quiet. Hanul could see fear in the eyes of every alien there. Some of the smaller species were already crying. Veltar continued his report. "The machines work together like parts of one giant brain. When one machine learns something, they all learn it instantly. They never waste ammunition. They never attack the wrong target. They never make any mistakes at all." "How many soldiers did you lose?" someone asked. "All of them," Veltar replied. 3 million trained soldiers. Gone in 2 days. The machines did not even seem to be trying very hard. They treated our military like a training exercise." Admiral Kim Do-hyun stepped forward on the screen. "Ambassador Veltar, did these machines show any weaknesses at all?" Veltar thought for a moment. Only one thing seemed strange. When some of our pilots got desperate and started flying in crazy patterns, the machines paused for a few seconds. But then they learned to predict even that. The council began to argue. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to gather all the military forces in the galaxy for one last battle. But most just looked hopeless. A large alien that looked like a walking tree stood up. "Perhaps we should contact the Vorthak Empire directly. Maybe we can make a deal." "What kind of deal?" asked the cat-like alien. "Total surrender. We give them control of our worlds, and maybe they will let some of us live as servants." Many of the aliens nodded sadly. It seemed like the only choice. Admiral Kim Do-hyun cleared his throat. "Council members, Earth would like to volunteer for a special mission." The room went quiet. Everyone looked at the human admiral. "What kind of mission?" asked the tree alien. We want to observe these machines in battle. We want to study how they fight and how they think. Maybe we can find something that everyone else has missed." Veltar shook his head. "Admiral, with respect, my people are good fighters. The Kelthani have won many wars. If we could not find a way to defeat these machines, what makes you think humans can do better?" Admiral Kim Do-yoon smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Maybe we cannot do better, but we have to try. Surrender means the end of freedom for every living being in this galaxy. That is not acceptable to us." "But you will just be throwing away human lives for nothing," protested another council member. Captain Hanul stepped forward. "May I speak, sir?" The Admiral nodded. "Council members," Hanul said, "humans have a saying. We say that you cannot know if something is impossible until you try it. We have fought many battles that we were supposed to lose. Sometimes we lost anyway, but sometimes we found a way to win when no one thought we could." "This is different," Veltar said. "These machines are perfect killers." "Maybe," Hanul replied. "But nothing is truly perfect. There is always a flaw somewhere. We just have to be smart enough to find it." Dr. Park Yuna joined the conversation. "We humans have spent our whole history fighting things that were bigger and stronger than us. Big animals, harsh weather, diseases, and each other. We learned to survive by thinking in ways that our enemies did not expect." The council members looked at each other. Finally, the tree alien spoke. "Very well. If Earth wants to send a ship to study these machines, we will not stop you. But do not expect us to wait for you. If you do not find an answer quickly, we will have to surrender." Admiral Kim Do-hyun nodded. "Understood. Captain Hanul, how soon can you leave?" "We can be ready in 6 hours, sir." "Good. Take your best people and your fastest ship. Find out everything you can about these machines. The future of the galaxy may depend on what you discover." As the transmission ended, Hanul looked around at his crew. Dr. Park was already preparing her equipment. The other officers were checking their weapons and systems. They all knew this might be a one-way trip, but none of them looked afraid. "Well, people," Hanul said, "looks like we get to be heroes or idiots. Probably both. Let's go see what these perfect war machines are really made of." The ship turned toward the stars and jumped into hyperspace, carrying the last hope of free beings everywhere. Captain Hanul's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system. The planet below was under attack, and even from this distance they could see the flashes of weapons fire lighting up the dark side of the world. "Take us in closer," Hanul ordered, "but keep us hidden. I want to see these machines with my own eyes." Commander Choi Minho, his tactical officer, worked at his station. "Activating stealth systems. We should be invisible to their sensors now." Dr. Park Yuna was already at her science station, pointing different instruments at the battle below, her screens filled with data about energy readings, weapon types, and movement patterns. "Commander," Hanul called to Sergeant Kang Hyejin, who was standing near the weapons console. "What do you see down there?" Kang Hyejin had fought in ground battles on 12 different worlds. She knew what real combat looked like. She studied the main screen for a moment before answering. "It is not a battle, Captain. It is an execution." The defending aliens had good positions on high ground around their main city. They had heavy weapons and energy shields. They even had air support flying overhead. But none of it mattered. The Vorthak machines moved across the battlefield like metal ghosts. Each one stood 30 feet tall and walked on 4 legs that looked like they belonged to a giant spider. Their bodies were covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. Energy weapons mounted on their backs could turn and fire in any direction. "Look at how they move," Dr. Park said, pointing at her screen. "They are not just walking toward the city. Each machine knows exactly where every other machine will be at every moment. They never get in each other's way. They never waste any movement." Pilot Nam Ji-hoon was watching from his station near the back of the bridge. He was young and had only been in space for 3 years. But he was the best fighter pilot Hanul had ever seen. Right now he looked confused. "Captain, something is wrong with their formation," Nam Ji-hoon said. "What do you mean?" "I have studied every military formation from every species in the galaxy. But what those machines are doing, it does not match any pattern I know. They are making their own formation as they go." On the screen, the machines reached the first line of defense. The aliens had built strong walls and put their best weapons behind them. Heavy cannons opened fire, sending streams of plasma toward the advancing machines. The machines did not even slow down. Their personal shields absorbed the weapons fire like it was nothing. But instead of just charging forward, each machine did something different. Some machines jumped high into the air, using rocket boosters built into their legs. Others dug into the ground and came up behind the walls. A few simply walked through the plasma fire and started climbing over the walls like they were small rocks. They are not following any battle plan, Commander Choi said. Each machine is deciding what to do by itself, but somehow they all work together perfectly. The defending aliens tried to adapt. They moved their weapons to target the jumping machines. They sent soldiers to fight the ones coming up from underground. They called for air support to attack the ones climbing the walls, but the machines had already predicted all of this. The moment the aliens moved their weapons, other machines attacked from new directions. When soldiers ran to fight the underground attackers, different machines hit their old positions. When aircraft came to help, flying machines rose up from behind the walls to meet them. It is like they can see the future, Sergeant Kang said quietly. Dr. Park shook her head. Not the future. But they can calculate probability so fast that it looks the same. Watch this. On her screen, she highlighted one defending alien soldier. He was behind a wall with a heavy weapon, firing at the machines. The soldier looked around, saw that machines were getting close to his position, and started to run to a new location. 3 different machines immediately turned to aim at the exact spot where the soldier was running. They fired at the same time and the soldier disappeared in a burst of energy. How did they know where he was going? Nam Ji-hoon asked. They calculated it, Dr. Park explained. They looked at where he was, where the danger was coming from, where the nearest cover was located and how fast he could run. Then they figured out exactly where he would be in 5 seconds. But that is impossible. There are too many choices he could make. Not for a computer brain that can think 1,000,000 times faster than we can. To them, that soldier was as predictable as a rock falling from a cliff. The battle continued for 6 more hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The machines never made a single mistake. They never wasted a shot. They never attacked the wrong target. They never left themselves open to counterattack. Worse, they kept learning. Every time the defenders tried a new tactic, the machines adapted to it within minutes. By the end of the battle, they were countering attacks before the aliens even finished planning them. Captain, Dr. Park said, I am recording everything, but I think I see the real problem. What is it? These machines are not just following programming. They are truly intelligent. Each one is learning and thinking on its own. But they are also connected to each other, sharing everything they learn instantly. Commander Choi whistled softly. So every time one machine learns something new, they all learn it? Exactly. And they have been fighting battles across 17 star systems. That means they have learned from millions of combat situations. They know every military tactic that has ever been used by any species in the galaxy. Hanel watched as the last defending positions fell silent. The machines had won again just like they always did. But something was bothering him about what he had seen. Dr. Park, play back that section where the alien fighter was spinning around. Which one? About 2 hours ago. One of their aircraft got hit and started flying in circles. Show me what the machines did. Dr. Park found the right section and put it on the main screen. They watched as an alien fighter with one wing damaged began spinning wildly through the air. The pilot had lost control and was just trying not to crash. 3 machines on the ground aimed their weapons at the spinning fighter. But for a few seconds they did not fire. They just tracked the aircraft with their weapons like they were trying to figure something out. There, Hanul said. Stop the recording. Do you see that? What am I looking for? Asked Commander Choi. They hesitated. For 2.3 seconds those machines did not know what to do. Sergeant Kang leaned forward, but then they shot it down. Yes, but not right away. They had to stop and calculate first. Why? Dr. Park ran the recording again in slow motion. The fighter was not flying in any recognizable pattern. It was just spinning randomly because the pilot had lost control. Exactly, Hanul said. The machines could not predict where it would go next because there was no logical pattern to predict. They had to wait and watch before they could figure out how to hit it. Pilot Nam Ji-hoon stood up suddenly. Captain, are you thinking what I think you are thinking? Probably. These machines are built to fight logical enemies. They can predict any reasonable military tactic because they have seen them all before. But what if someone fought in a way that was not reasonable? That would be crazy, Commander Choi said. Military tactics exist for good reasons. If you ignore them, you will lose. Maybe, Hanul replied. But we are already losing. Every species that has fought these machines using proper military tactics has been destroyed. Maybe it is time to try something that is not proper. Dr. Park was running calculations on her computer. Captain, the idea might work for a few minutes. But the machines would learn to predict random behavior too eventually. How long would it take them? Hard to say. Maybe an hour. Maybe less. An hour might be enough if we use it right. Sergeant Kang shook her head. Sir, with respect, asking soldiers to fight without tactics is like asking them to fight with their eyes closed. I know how it sounds. But look at the facts. Every logical attack fails. Every reasonable plan gets predicted. Every smart tactic gets countered before we can even use it. Hanul walked over to the main screen and looked at the now quiet planet below. Millions of beings had just died because they fought the way they had been trained to fight. Set course for Earth, he ordered. We need to get this information to Admiral Kim. And we need to start thinking about how to fight a war where the only winning move is to make no sense at all. Commander Choi activated the navigation system. Course laid in, Captain. But sir, how do you train an army to be unpredictable? Hanul smiled for the first time in days. I have no idea, but I know someone who might. As the ship jumped back into hyperspace, Dr. Park continued analyzing the data from the battle. In all the recordings of machine combat, that one moment of hesitation when facing unpredictable movement was the only flaw she could find. It was not much of a weakness. But for a species facing extinction, even the smallest hope was worth fighting for. The meeting room at Earth Defense Command was packed with the most important military minds from across the planet. Captain Hanul had just finished showing his recordings from the battle at Nexus Prime. The room was very quiet. General Song Kyung-min, a man with gray hair and scars from many wars, leaned back in his chair. He had been fighting enemies for 40 years, but he had never seen anything like the Vorthak machines. So let me understand this, General Song said. These machines can predict every move we make before we make it. They learn faster than we can adapt. They never make mistakes, and they share all their knowledge with each other instantly. That is correct, sir, Hanul replied. And your plan to defeat them is to fight like crazy people? Not crazy, sir, unpredictable. General Song rubbed his forehead. Captain, I have seen soldiers try to fight without following orders. They all end up dead very quickly. Dr. Park Yuna stepped forward. She had spent the entire trip back to Earth analyzing the battle recordings. General, may I show you something? She activated the wall screen and played the scene of the spinning alien fighter again. Watch the machines here. See how they hesitate when the aircraft starts moving randomly. Colonel Bae Sujin, who commanded Earth's Special Forces, watched the recording carefully. She was known for thinking of creative solutions to impossible problems. How long did they hesitate? 2.3 seconds the first time. But when another damaged fighter started spinning an hour later, they only hesitated for 0.8 seconds. So they do learn to handle random behavior, Colonel Bae said. Just not as fast as they learn to handle planned attacks. Exactly. Their computers are built to recognize patterns. When something follows a pattern, they can predict it almost instantly. But when there is no pattern to recognize, they need more time to figure out what to do. A young soldier near the back of the room raised his hand. He was Private First Class Yu Seonho, fresh from military academy. Most of the officers in the room had 20 years of experience. He had been a soldier for 6 months. Sir, may I ask a question? General Song looked annoyed. Private, this is not a classroom. But Captain Hanul remembered that some of the best ideas came from people who had not learned why things were impossible yet. Let him speak. Private Yu stood up nervously. I was watching the recordings and I noticed something strange. The machines always move in the most efficient way possible, right? That is correct, Dr. Park said. But what if efficiency is their weakness? The room went quiet. General Song frowned. Explain yourself, Private. Well, sir, when I was in training, they taught us that military tactics work because they are the best way to achieve objectives with minimum losses. Every formation, every strategy, every battle plan is designed to be as effective as possible. Yes. That is how war works, Colonel Bae said patiently. But sir, what if being effective is exactly what the machines expect? What if we deliberately choose tactics that are not the best choice? Dr. Park's eyes went wide. You mean fight badly on purpose? Not badly, ma'am. Differently. The machines can predict the best move in any situation because there usually is only one best move. but there are always many different moves that are almost as good. What if we picked those instead? General Song was starting to look interested. Give me an example, Private. Yu Seonho walked to the screen and pointed at a section of the battle recording. Here, the defending aliens put their heavy weapons on high ground behind walls. That is the correct tactical choice. It gives them the best field of fire and the most protection. Right. But what if they had put some of their big weapons in the valley instead? It would be a worse position tactically, but it would be completely unexpected. The machines planned their attack assuming all the heavy weapons would be in the logical places. Colonel Bay nodded slowly. The machines would still win, but they would have to change their plan first. That would give the defenders a few more minutes. And a few more minutes might be enough to spring a surprise attack, Private Yu continued. Not a logical surprise attack that makes sense, but something so strange that the machines need time to figure it out. Captain Hanul walked over to the tactical display. Dr. Park, could you run a simulation? Show us what would happen if human forces used deliberately suboptimal tactics. Dr. Park worked at her computer for several minutes. This is just a guess, but based on the machine response times I recorded, if we use tactics that were 20% less efficient than optimal, the machines would need about 15% more time to adapt. That is not much, General Song said. No, sir, but it might be enough. If we could keep changing tactics faster than they could adapt, we might be able to stay one step ahead of them. Commander Choi Minho, who had been quiet during the meeting, spoke up. There is another problem. How do you train soldiers to fight inefficiently? Every instinct they have, every lesson they learned, tells them to make the best tactical choice. Maybe we do not train them, said Sergeant Kang Hyejin. Maybe we just tell them to trust their instincts but then do the opposite of what their instincts say. Private Yu raised his hand again. Actually, sir, there might be a better way. This time General Song did not look annoyed. Go ahead, Private. What if we do not try to be unpredictable? What if we try to be creative? What is the difference? Asked Colonel Bay. Random behavior is just chaos. The machines can eventually learn to handle chaos by calculating all possible outcomes. But creativity is different. Creative solutions are still logical, but they are logical in ways that no one expects. Dr. Park was getting excited. Like the way humans solve puzzles. We do not just try random solutions. We think of new approaches that make sense, but only after someone explains them. Exactly. The machines know every military tactic that has ever been used, but they might not be ready for military tactics that have never been used before. General Song stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see Earth's orbital defense platforms being prepared for battle. They all followed standard defensive designs that had been tested in hundreds of wars. So you are suggesting that we throw away thousands of years of military science and make up new tactics as we go along? Not throw away, sir. Build on top of. Take everything we know about war and then add things that no one has ever tried before. Captain Hanul looked around the room. We need to test this theory. General, can you give us a small force to experiment with? What did you have in mind? A single ship engagement. We take one human vessel against one machine, somewhere far from the main battlefront. We try fighting creatively and see what happens. Colonel Bay smiled. I know just the ship. The experimental cruiser Wildfire. It was designed for testing new weapons and tactics. Who would command it? Hanul looked at Private Yu Seonho. Actually, I think we need someone who has not learned the old ways yet. Someone whose first instinct is to think of new solutions. Private Yu looked terrified. Sir, I am not qualified to command a starship. You are not qualified to command it the normal way, General Song said. But we are not trying to fight the normal way anymore, are we? Dr. Park was already planning the experiment. We will need to choose our target carefully. A single machine that is isolated from the main force, so it cannot share what it learns with the others immediately. And we will need volunteers, added Colonel Bay. This will be dangerous. The crew will be testing completely new tactics against an enemy that has never lost a battle. Captain Hanul stepped forward. I volunteer to lead the mission, and I think Private Yu should be my tactical advisor. Are you crazy? General Song asked. Probably, but crazy might be exactly what we need. Over the next 3 days, they prepared for the test mission. The crew of the Wildfire practiced tactics that went against everything they had learned in military school. They trained to make decisions quickly without thinking too much about whether those decisions were smart. Pilot Nam Ji-hoon worked with other fighter pilots to develop New flying patterns that mixed elements from dance, sports, and even children's games. Sergeant Kang Hyejin taught her Marines to move in formations inspired by flocks of birds and schools of fish. Dr. Park installed new computers that could generate random tactical suggestions, not to follow them, but to spark creative thinking in the human commanders. As they prepared to leave Earth, Admiral Kim Do-hyun came to see them off. "You know this is probably suicide," he told Captain Hanul. "Yes, sir. But if we are right, it might be the kind of suicide that saves everyone else." "And if you are wrong?" Hanul looked out at the stars where somewhere in the darkness perfect war machines were destroying everything in their path. "If we are wrong, sir, then we are all dead anyway. At least this way we go down fighting in a way that no one expects." The wildfire jumped into hyperspace, carrying with it the strangest battle plan in the history of warfare. To win by being willing to lose, to succeed by embracing failure, and to defeat perfection by celebrating the beautiful chaos of human creativity. Whether it would work, nobody knew. But for the first time since the war began, they had something that felt like hope. The wildfire dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler Station, a small research outpost that had been abandoned when the war started. Long-range sensors showed exactly what they were looking for, a single Vorthak machine patrolling the area alone. "Perfect," said Captain Hanul. "One machine isolated from the main fleet. Whatever we do here, it cannot share the information immediately with other machines." Private Yu Xiano, now wearing the temporary rank of lieutenant, was studying the tactical display. His hands were shaking slightly, but his voice was steady. "Captain, the machine is following standard patrol patterns. Very efficient. Covers maximum area with minimum energy. Good. That means it is thinking predictably right now. Dr. Park, are your sensors recording everything?" "Yes, sir. Every move, every energy reading, every response time. If this works, we will need to understand exactly why it worked." Commander Choi Minho was at the weapons station. "Sir, should we attack using standard battle formations?" "No, remember, we want to be creative, not logical." "Lieutenant Yu, what is your recommendation?" The young officer took a deep breath. "Sir, I suggest we do something that makes no tactical sense at all. What if we approach the machine sideways? Sideways? Instead of coming at it head-on like every other ship would do, we approach from the side while spinning slowly. And instead of firing our main weapons, we start with our weakest guns." Sergeant Kang Hyejin looked up from her station. "Sir, that will just give the machine time to target us properly." "Maybe. Or maybe it will confuse the machine long enough for us to try something else unexpected." Captain Hanul made his decision. "Do it. Helm, bring us in at a 90-degree angle to the machine's position. Start a slow rotation on our main axis. Weapons, charge up the light pulse cannons only." As the wildfire began its strange approach, the machine immediately noticed them. It turned to face their ship and began moving toward them. But instead of the instant, precise response they had seen in all the other battles, the machine paused for almost a full second. "It is trying to figure out what we are doing," Dr. Park reported excitedly. "Its movement patterns show slight hesitation. The machine opened fire with its plasma cannons, but the shots missed by several meters." The rotating motion of the human ship made it harder to calculate the exact trajectory. "Now what?" asked Commander Choi. Lieutenant Yu was thinking fast. "Something else unexpected. What if we apologize to it? What? Open a communication channel and apologize for disturbing its patrol. While we are talking to it, we change direction completely and attack from below." It sounded crazy, but Captain Hanul had promised to trust creative thinking over logical thinking. "Open the channel." "Attention, Vorthak machine," Hanul said in his most polite voice. "We are sorry for interrupting your patrol duties. We were just passing through and did not mean to bother you." The machine stopped firing. For 3 seconds, it did not move at all. "I think it is trying to process a diplomatic communication in the middle of active combat," Dr. Park whispered. "It probably has no programming for that situation." "Now," shouted Lieutenant Yu. The wildfire dove below the machine and opened fire with everything they had. The machine tried to turn to follow them, but human ships were built to be more agile than the heavy Vorthak machines. For a moment, they had a clear shot at the machine's less armored underside. Their weapons hit the machine's shields, which flared bright blue but held. The machine immediately returned fire, but again its shots were not as precise as usual. "It is adapting," Commander Choi reported, "but more slowly than in the recordings from other battles." Then we need to keep doing things it does not expect. Lieutenant, what is our next creative move? Yu Xianho looked around the bridge desperately. Sir, what if we… Ram it? Ram it? Not really ram it. But fly straight at it like we are going to ram it. Then change direction at the last second and fire as we pass by. That is incredibly dangerous. Yes, sir. That is why it might work. Captain Hanul felt his heart pounding. Everything in his military training told him this was suicide. But his logical military training was exactly what the machines were built to counter. Do it. Full speed toward the machine. Do not change course until I give the order. The wildfire accelerated directly at the Vorthak machine. On the main screen, the 30-foot-tall metal warrior grew larger and larger. Its weapons were tracking them, but something was wrong with its firing pattern. The machine is having trouble deciding when to shoot, Dr. Park reported. It is calculating multiple scenarios for when we might change course. How close do we get before we turn? Asked the helmsman nervously. I do not know, Lieutenant Yu admitted. I have never tried this before. 500 meters, Captain Hanul decided. Turn at 500 meters. The distance closed rapidly. 1,000 meters. 800. 600. The machine fired, but its plasma bolts passed over their ship. It had calculated that they would turn sooner. 500 meters, called the helmsman. Turn now. All weapons fire. The wildfire rolled to the left and opened fire as it passed the machine. This time their weapons found gaps in the machine's shields. Sparks flew from several damaged systems on the machine's hull. We hit it, cheered Commander Choi. Actual damage. But the machine was learning. It turned to follow them much faster than before, and its next shots came much closer to hitting. What now? Captain Hanul asked. Lieutenant Yu was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he smiled. Sir, what if we ask the machine for directions? Directions? We open communications again and ask it for directions to the nearest space station. While it is trying to figure out why we are asking, we attack again. Dr. Park was watching her instruments. The machine is already adapting to our previous tactics. Look, it is positioning itself to counter ramming attacks and surprise maneuvers. Then we need to do something completely different. Open the channel. Excuse me, Captain Hanul said to the machine. We seem to be lost. Could you please tell us the best route to the Centauri system? The machine stopped moving again. Its weapons were still tracking their ship, but it did not fire. I think it is trying to access its database for navigation information, Dr. Park whispered. But it is also trying to maintain combat readiness. The two processes might be interfering with each other. While it is thinking about that, Lieutenant Yu said, let's do something really unexpected. What if we dance? Move the ship in a pattern that looks like a dance. Not random movement, but something with rhythm and beauty. Maybe it will confuse the machine's targeting systems. Pilot Nam Ji-hoon overheard from his fighter bay and called in on the intercom. Sir, I know some traditional Korean dances. I could fly the ship through the movements of the fan dance. Captain Hanul almost laughed. You want to make our starship dance? Why not, sir? The machine expects us to move like a military vessel. What if we move like art instead? Do it. The wildfire began to move through space in slow, graceful curves. The ship rolled and turned in patterns that had nothing to do with combat tactics and everything to do with beauty and tradition. The machine tried to track them, but its targeting system kept miscalculating. The movements were too smooth and flowing for its combat algorithms to predict accurately. Fire while we dance, ordered Lieutenant Yu. The human ship's weapons fired in rhythm with its movements, creating patterns of light that were both deadly and beautiful. Several shots hit the machine, causing more damage to its systems. The machine is trying to adapt to our dance pattern, Dr. Park reported. But every time it starts to figure it out, we change to a different dance. For the next 20 minutes, the battle continued like this. The humans would try something completely unexpected, gain a temporary advantage, and then switch to something else before the machine could fully adapt. They apologized to the machine, asked it for cooking recipes, performed aerial acrobatics, and at one point, Captain Hanul read it a poem about flowers. Each strange tactic worked for a few minutes before the machine learned to counter it. But those few minutes were enough to score hits and avoid taking damage. Finally, after trying 17 different creative attacks, the machine's shields failed. The wildfire's weapons broke through and destroyed several critical systems. The machine stopped moving and went dark. Is it dead? Asked Commander Choi. No, Dr. Park replied, checking her sensors. Just disabled. But sir, we actually won. A human ship defeated a Vorthak machine in single combat. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then everyone started cheering. Captain Hanul opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Kim, this is Captain Hanul. Mission accomplished. Repeat, mission accomplished. Admiral Kim Do-hyun's voice came back immediately. You defeated the machine? Yes, sir. Creative tactics work. They do not work for long, but they work long enough. How long? Lieutenant Yu checked his records. Each individual tactic was effective for an average of 2.3 minutes before the machine adapted. But by switching tactics frequently, we kept it off balance for the entire battle. Outstanding work. Return to Earth immediately. We have a war to plan. As the wildfire jumped back into hyperspace, Dr. Park continued analyzing the battle data. Captain, I think we found something important. The machines can adapt to any single strategy quickly, but they have trouble when we use many different strategies in rapid succession. So we need to. Admiral Kim Do-hyun stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching as hundreds of Vorthak machines approached through space. This was it. The final battle that would decide the fate of every free being in the galaxy. All ships report ready, announced Captain Lee Hanul from his position aboard the flagship Harmony. Around Earth, 300 human vessels waited in formations that would have made any military academy professor weep with confusion. Some ships were arranged in patterns that looked like flowers. Others flew in spirals that served no tactical purpose. A few were positioned upside down for no reason other than because it felt creative. Dr. Park, are you recording everything? Admiral Kim asked. Yes, sir. Every weapon discharge, every movement, every communication. If we survive this, we will need to teach other species how to fight like humans. Lieutenant Yu Seonho, now promoted to commander after his success at Kepler Station, was coordinating what they were calling Operation Beautiful Chaos. He had spent 2 weeks training ship captains to throw away everything they knew about space combat. All ships, this is Commander Yu, he announced over the fleet communication system. Remember, there are no wrong moves today. There are only unexpected moves. Trust your creativity, ignore your training, and make the machines think too hard. The Vorthak fleet approached in perfect formation. 500 war machines, each one a 30-foot-tall engine of destruction, moving with precision that would have terrified any normal enemy. But the humans were not normal enemies. Admiral, reported Commander Choi Minho from the sensor station, the machines are scanning our formations. They seem confused by our positioning. Good. Let them think about it. All ships begin Phase 1, Introduction. Captain An Seola, commanding the cruiser Moonlight, opened a communication channel to the entire Vorthak fleet. Hello, machines. Welcome to Earth. We hope you had a pleasant journey. Would you like some tea? The machine fleet stopped advancing for almost 10 seconds. Lieutenant Oh Minju aboard the destroyer Wildflower followed up immediately. We have prepared a cultural presentation for you. Please observe our traditional human space ballet. Half of the human fleet began moving in synchronized patterns based on classical Korean dance. Ships rolled and turned in graceful arcs that served no military purpose but were beautiful to watch. The machines tried to calculate optimal attack approaches, but the constantly changing dance patterns made targeting calculations extremely difficult. Now, Admiral Kim ordered, Phase 2, Polite Conversation. Suddenly, every human ship opened fire while simultaneously sending friendly messages to the machines. Sorry about the weapons fire, called Captain Nam Ji-hoon from his fighter squadron. We are just very excited to meet you. Please do not take this personally, added Sergeant Kang Hee-jin from her assault ship. We are sure you are very nice machines. The Vorthak fleet tried to respond logically. They returned fire and began advancing in standard attack formation. But their targeting was off because they were also trying to process hundreds of contradictory communication signals. Phase 3, Commander Yu announced. Democratic decision-making. This was the strangest tactic yet. Instead of having commanders make quick decisions, the human ships began voting on what to do next. In the middle of active combat, ship captains would call for votes on which direction to turn, which targets to attack, and which weapons to use. All ships in Sector 7, called Captain Park Ji-won. Should we attack the big machine or the medium machine? All in favor of big machine, fire once. All in favor of medium machine, fire twice. The voting process took precious seconds, but it completely confused the machine targeting systems. They could not predict human movements because the humans themselves did not know what they were going to do until after they voted. Corporal Shin Taeyong, coordinating communications, made things even more confusing by broadcasting the vote counts to the machines. Attention Vorthak Fleet, the vote is 15 for attack pattern Alpha, 12 for attack pattern Beta, and 3 abstentions. The machines had no programming for dealing with democratic military decisions. Their algorithms tried to calculate the most likely outcome of a vote, but human voting patterns were not logical enough to predict accurately. The machines are adapting, Dr. Park reported, but much more slowly than usual. The rapid changes in tactics are overloading their learning systems. Excellent. Phase 4, Art Criticism. Human ship captains began commenting on the aesthetic qualities of the machine formations while they fought. Those machines move very gracefully, observed Commander Lee Sunmi while firing her ship's main weapons. Very functional design. I give it 7 points out of 10. I prefer more colorful enemies, replied Captain Kim Min-jae, dodging machine plasma fire. These machines need better paint jobs. The machines tried to process this information. Were the humans analyzing their combat effectiveness? Were they gathering intelligence? Or were they just making random observations? The uncertainty forced the machines to spend processing power on irrelevant data analysis. By this time, the human fleet had scored significant hits on dozens of machines while taking minimal damage themselves. The constant changes in tactics meant that every time a machine learned to counter one approach, the humans had already switched to something else. Sir, reported Commander Choi, we are actually winning. The machines are having trouble coordinating their attacks because they cannot predict our behavior patterns. Phase 5, Admiral Kim announced with a smile. Direct request for surrender. Captain Hanul opened a fleet-wide communication channel. Attention all Vorthak machines. We have been fighting for 2 hours now and frankly, we are getting tired. Would you consider surrendering? We promise to be nice to you if you give up. The machine fleet stopped moving completely. For 30 seconds, 500 war machines hung motionless in space while their computers tried to process a sincere diplomatic offer, in the middle of active combat. They have no protocol for this, Dr. Park whispered excitedly. Surrender requests are supposed to come from the losing side, not the winning side. And we made the request while we were still shooting at them. Commander Yu seized the moment. All ships, while they are thinking about our offer, execute final phase coordinated chaos. This was the culmination of everything they had learned. Every human ship began acting independently, but in a way that somehow worked together. Fighters performed acrobatics while bombing runs. Cruisers fired their weapons in artistic patterns while moving through formations inspired by murmurations of starlings. Capital ships requested permission to change targets from ships that had already changed targets to different targets. Pilot Nam Ji-hoon led his squadron in an attack pattern based on a children's game of tag. Sergeant Kang coordinated her Marines in boarding actions that followed the rules of hide-and-seek. Captain Ansiola maneuvered her cruiser through combat formations inspired by flower arranging. The result was magnificent chaos. Human forces moved like a flock of birds, no central coordination but somehow perfectly synchronized in their beautiful unpredictability. The machines could not adapt fast enough. Every time their learning algorithms identified a pattern, the pattern changed. Every time they calculated an optimal response, the humans were already doing something completely different. Machine shields are failing across their entire fleet, reported Commander Choi. Sir, I think they are having some kind of processing overload. On the main screen, they could see the machine fleet beginning to break apart. Individual machines were moving erratically, their perfect coordination disrupted by the effort to process too many unexpected variables at once. Incoming message from the Vorthak fleet, announced Corporal Shin. Put it through. A mechanical voice spoke in precise, emotionless words. Human forces, we do not understand your combat methodology. Our tactical analysis systems have reached computational limits. We request clarification of your strategic objectives. Admiral Kim looked around at his command staff, all of whom were trying not to laugh. Tell them our strategic objective is to be friends, he said. Sir, you heard me. Tell them we want to be friends and ask if they would like to learn how to be creative too. The message was sent. The response came back quickly. We do not have programming for being friends. Could you teach us? 3 hours later, The first Vorthak machine was learning to paint watercolor pictures under the instruction of Dr. Park Yuna. The machine's attempts were not very good, but it seemed to enjoy the process of creating something that served no logical purpose. Captain Hanul found Admiral Kim standing at the observation deck, watching as human engineers helped damaged machines repair themselves while machine technicians shared their advanced technology with human scientists. "Sir, the Galactic Council is requesting a full report on our victory," Hanul said. "What should I tell them?" Admiral Kim thought for a moment. "Tell them that the secret to defeating perfect enemies is to be perfectly imperfect. Tell them that chaos is not the opposite of order, but a different kind of order that includes room for surprise. And the machines? What do we do with 500 war machines that want to learn how to be creative? We teach them. Who knows? Maybe the galaxy needs more artists and fewer warriors." Commander Yu Xianho approached with a datapad.